And as people come in, we will be able to progress. So I think we have Noreen. Hi, Noreen. How are you doing?
I'm fine, Dr. Harrison. How are you?
Good. It's nice to have you here too.
Yeah.
So what we'll try to do is we'll start, and as people, because with Zoom, it might take some time for people to log in and all that. I'll be looking at it. But either way, thanks everyone for coming. Of course, you guys already know me, or most of you, apart from JK. My name is Christian Harrison, and a reader in the school, and I'm privileged to be facilitating the vibrant research seminar that we've had in the last 2 years. And we've had great research seminars, different topics over the year, or even the years right now. And today is not going to be anything different. So it's great to have everybody here. Like I always say, feel free to introduce yourself. Feel free to tell us where you're logging in from. We have people from different parts of the world, so you can try and introduce yourself via the chat. One of the things that we learned in 2021, I can remember one of the speakers said, introduce yourself in your native language. And since then, it became a culture. And I started to see people use Mandarin, people use different languages. And we have people from Ghana. So it might be good for us to see some Ghanaian language introduction. I would like to see that if anybody can help me. That's just me being selfish. But yeah, try to introduce yourself. Let us know where you're coming from, and that will be great. The rules of Zoom, of course, the rules of engagement, we have gotten used to doing this. Please try to mute yourself while you're not talking, because to just ensure that it doesn't affect the speaker. And you can feel free to put on your videos if you want. And of course, if you don't want as well, also feel free to put it off if you feel. But of course, my preference on a normal day is always to place a face to the name. And of course, it's not a do or die situation. So if you need to leave, if you need to take water, if there's an emergency in your house, please don't forget, you can leave your laptop or your computer and go. And I'm sure Inyene and I will be fine if you have to go. So please do that. But clearly, now to the seminar, that's why we are here. I know Christian has been talking and talking and talking. So let's move into the real reason why we're here. The major thing is we're looking at a very important topic, and it's about empowering female entrepreneurs for sustainable economic development in Sub-Saharan Africa, and looking at the challenges and prospects within the Nigerian economy. One thing we have noticed over time is female entrepreneurship has become very important. Entrepreneurship itself is really the engine of growth, especially within the UK and also Scotland as well. But what are the challenges female entrepreneurs tend to face? How can we combat those challenges? How can we ensure that female entrepreneurs can really contribute to economic development? And especially when you look at it from the developing economy perspective, there has been very few studies that have examined it. And luckily for us, we have one of them that has done it. And she's going to be talking so much and sharing her insights about this. First, I'd like to say thank you to Inyene for agreeing to be part of this. But when I spoke to Inyene and told her, okay, Inyene, are you going to talk to us about your research? She said, yes, I will. And she's here today. So I'm glad she's available to do this. And of course, she's a seasoned expert and has done research in this area. But just a short bio of who Inyene Nkanta is. So Inyene Nkanta is a lecturer of business and management in the School of Business and Creative Industries of the University of West of Scotland, for those of you that are not in Scotland. Prior to joining UWS, she was an associate lecturer with the University of Wolverhampton, where she's currently undertaking her PhD study. Inyene received her bachelor's degree in finance from University of Uyo in Nigeria, and she has a master's degree in human resource and industrial management from Coventry University. She's a fellow of the Higher Education Academy and is also a member of the Chartered Management Institute and the Chartered Institute of Personnel Development. Inyene has taught various modules within the school, and she has been a module coordinator teaching most of this. Her primary research interests include, of course, not surprising, entrepreneurship, sustainability, innovation, human resource management, and she's interested in female entrepreneurship development through human capital development and sustainability in Africa. Inyene is a grant holder She has been able to get 2 GCRF grants, and she has traveled around Canada, Indonesia. These are nice places, and of course, our interest evolves around female entrepreneurs in Sub-Sahara Africa. So that's the person we have in our midst, and she's going to be talking much more and providing insights about how we can empower female entrepreneurs. And after she has presented, feel free to ask her all the questions that you have in mind. Thank you very much, and Inyene, you can have center stage.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you. Thank you so much, Christian. Thank you for the introduction. It's always good to introduce yourself too. So my name is Inyene, but he has done all the introduction. It's really wonderful to see some of my colleagues, some that I've actually met face-to-face, some I've met online. I don't think I've met some people, but it's lovely to have everyone here. I'll just quickly go by just sharing my slide at the moment because Christian has warned me about my time, so I need to be very careful about my time. So I'll just share my screen, and I believe you can see my screen now.
Yes, we can see it, yeah.
Okay, brilliant. So my name is Inyene Nkanta. I'm not going to say that again, and I'm with the University of the West of Scotland. And my research is on female entrepreneurs for sustainable economic development in Sub-Sahara Africa, looking at the challenges and prospects within the Nigerian economy. So it's within the context of the Nigerian economy. I just put in women entrepreneurs, and we see what entrepreneurship is all about. If you have entrepreneurs, Americans are really, really going into entrepreneurship. We all know, even in the world now, Africa is really tapping into the strength of entrepreneurship, because with entrepreneurship, you're able to create jobs for people, there's wealth creation, and there's also improved economy. And that's the perspective that my research is all about. This is the outline of today's. I'm going to be looking at the background to the study, the purpose, Nigerian context. For some people who don't know Nigeria, just a bit introduction of Nigerian context, the theory and the model, the data and method, the results, implications of the research. What are some of the research outcome and the contribution, and also limitation? There's always limitation to every research. So the background of the study, entrepreneurship has become a tool for economic development in Sub-Sahara Africa. With increasing economic contribution of female entrepreneurs, women participation in entrepreneurial activities topping the list globally, particularly in Africa, with Nigerian female entrepreneurs having one of the highest number of female entrepreneurs in Africa. That's a huge number to say that Nigeria has one of it. And if you look at this, I just had to put this, Africa stands as the promised land of female entrepreneurship. And if you look at the statistics, the data, 24%, that is huge. However, the fact that we have so many female entrepreneurship, it's unfortunate that they are not contributing as much as possible because they are not in that space where they are able to contribute that much. And that's why I'm trying to look at why are women not contributing as much. So this study, the purpose of this study is to explore and investigate the prospects and challenges faced by female entrepreneurs in Nigeria and how they can be empowered to contribute more to economic development. We are not saying, or I'm not saying they have not contributed, but how can they contribute more? The focus is to understand why many female entrepreneurs in Nigeria are mostly concentrated in the informal sector compared to their male counterparts who are dominating the formal sector, and how these women can be empowered to engage more in business enterprises in the formal sector, which is actually believed to generate more revenue, more income, more GDP to the economy. Hence, women can contribute to the economic development of Nigeria. The Nigerian context, I'll just say a bit of Nigerian context. So Nigeria has a population of over 200 million. Almost 50% of that population are women. Fantastic. Nigeria is the most populated country in Africa and account for 50% of Africa's population. Its population is made up of 200 ethnic groups. I'm just going to go to the last paragraph. Although the country has made significant progress, Nigeria has prospects for strong economic growth. However, the challenges that hinders the country economic development remain because about 50% of the population lives below poverty level. About 50% are not or underemployed. And that is why it's so important that I did this research. This research, I'm very passionate about it because if we have almost 50% of population of women, if these women are being empowered, think of what could happen. This could create employment, and that could also reduce the poverty level within the country. The theory and the model, the theoretical underpinning for this study examines the idea of human capital and institutional theory. Within this, the focus was how this component are associated with opportunity identification, recognition, and exploitation in entrepreneurship research and in the entrepreneurship process, particularly in the context of female entrepreneurship in Sub-Sahara Africa. So I was looking at human capital model. Why is human capital development important? Why should we give women leverage through human capital theory? And I also looked at institutional theory. What are some of the things that institutions such as government body could do to help women? This is followed by a more analysis that identifies, explains, and justifies how human capital, such as education, knowledge, and skills, training and experience are leveraged to facilitate the opportunity identification and exploitation process. The theory and model extend to an understanding of how this component can be used through the medium of entrepreneurship education to enhance entrepreneurship success for predominantly Nigerian female entrepreneurs. And why I talked about entrepreneurship education, unfortunately, yes, the government has rolled policies of introduction of entrepreneurship education in Nigeria. But it's so sad that sometimes this entrepreneurship education is focused more for business students. Meanwhile, we have women who are probably in engineering, studying construction engineering, but they do not have opportunity to actually offer models of entrepreneurship education. The data and method. A qualitative approach to data collection was taken due to the exploratory and inductive nature of the preliminary research questions in this study. Also, there was a case study research strategy that was adopted as a research method for this study. Using a qualitative methodological approach, including the data collection through semi-structured virtual interview with 20 purposely sampled female entrepreneurs in Nigeria who have been in business for 5 years and above. Unfortunately, I was meant to actually go to Nigeria for this data collection, but because of COVID and restriction, I wasn't able to go. And we looked at these women who have been in business for 5 years. The reason why I had to look at women who had been in business for 5 years, because it is believed that people who have survived at least for 5 years in business, at least relatively, they have been able to weather the storm at least. So that's why I decided to go for women who have been in business for 5 years and above. A transcribed interviews were analyzed using thematic analysis. 5 of the thematic category that encompass these 5 teams emerged from the sub-teams. I know this is not very visible enough, but I'll just run through it. So part of the research objective and my research question, I was trying to link out some of the teams together. And with some of the teams that I got was success and motivation. What motivates these women into entrepreneurship? Do they have family support? Are they really necessity-driven entrepreneurs, like people believe that most African women are necessity entrepreneurs, or are they opportunity-driven entrepreneurs? And I got to find out that some people are actually opportunity-driven entrepreneurs. They saw something, however, they don't have that skills and education. It's just all about passion that they went into, or they started a business. I also looked at challenges, or some of the themes that were teased out were challenges in such as, what are the finances? Do they have access to finances, role model, limited mobility, personal-based constraints? Because some women, it's just about their mental thought that has actually hindered them from entering into the space of formal sector. I also teased out gender and cultural belief, where we looked at discrimination and also how women are able to balance their personal life, family, and also as a business owner. Also human capital, which was the theoretical aspect of this research, looking at education and training, skills and experience, and the Nigerian environment, some of the impact of the regulatory environment, some of the policies that government have, and also support from government and other bodies. The result of this study. The study found evidence that female entrepreneurs in Nigeria do lack access to financial, but not just financial assets, but human capital, which limit and impede them from running their businesses in the formal sector, as they have a mindset constraint such as risk aversion and are not adequately equipped with entrepreneurship education, training, and soft skills such as business and leadership skills. In addition, this study found that the women have culturally imposed constraints that psychologically impede their independence, aspiration, and priorities. These studies reveal that when women cross over into the male-dominated sector, they can earn more compared to the earnings that they earn from the traditional dominated sector. Implication for entrepreneurship research and practice. Empowering female entrepreneurs to succeed in practice, particularly in the male-dominated sector, will require exposing female entrepreneurs to human capital development, such as entrepreneurship education and training in business. This approach will promote the development of entrepreneurial skills to provide new path and ambition for women and the ability to negotiate their right in social economic activity. Entrepreneurship education, training, knowledge, and adequate experience are critical factors of success for women entrepreneurs in Nigeria. Developing an initiative of exposing women to human capital will eliminate some of the cultural biases for unequal education for boys and girls, which create gender gaps in educational attainment, where males are considered more suitable to be trained than women within the traditional African society. Implications for policy. The Nigerian government should take steps enforcing the laws which appear to be dormant in nature. Not that we don't have some of these policies, we do have. The policies and programs concerning women economic empowerment needs to be properly and regularly investigated and evaluated to ascertain that their primary rules are being met. There is need to disabuse the minds of investors and spearhead them towards investing in women entrepreneurship. This can be done by offering more substantial tailored financial support for women entrepreneurs with growth-oriented business, including venture capital investment. Key conclusion. The findings of these studies have enabled the uncovering of effective strategies that worked in overcoming barriers experienced by female entrepreneurs and how they can be empowered to participate in more innovative businesses, not just the traditional selling of clothes, buying and selling of clothes, but more innovative businesses. The insight obtained from this study support the assertion in existing study that female entrepreneurship improvement require an entrepreneurial ecosystem that combines crucial elements of entrepreneurship education program on cooperative environment that consists of support from private, public, non-governmental, and also the wider society. The study presents the fact in line with human capital theory perspective of empowering female entrepreneurs through human capital development. The inclusiveness of women in entrepreneurship education, training, and other processes such as networking opportunities and role models as a way of bridging gender equality. The study also offers practical insight regarding some strategies and processes women have adopted to compete with their male counterparts in the formal sector of the economy and how they can overcome some of these barriers in sustaining profitable entrepreneurial business venture in male-dominating sector. The findings of the study may provide essential information that might be useful to struggling female entrepreneurs. Every research always has limitations. Some of the limitations of this research was that the sampling and inquiry is a single country context and investigation. Results may not be valid beyond Nigeria, even with countries of similar economic profile. 20 Nigerian female entrepreneurs engage in these studies, and their circumstances, barrier phase, and strategies utilized may be particular to specific settings and locality, which are limited mostly only 7 business sectors that are used. The perception of this participant may not reflect or represent the views of all female entrepreneurs in Nigeria. Also, some findings may not be replicable or transferable to other national culture, countries, or situations, as countries and regions have different cultures, values, and beliefs, particularly about women, which may have a differential impact on entrepreneurial operations. So that is just a short note of what my research is all about, and I'm happy for any questions now.
Okay, short and precise. Thank you very much, Inyene, for the wonderful presentation. It was great to see where you're coming from. You can see already that you've done so much within the Nigerian space about women entrepreneurship, good findings, very clear results and contributions to the study. to the space as well. So great, thank you very much. I found it very, very useful. Before I have questions for you, but I would let other people start the questions. So any questions for Inyene? Any questions, any comments, anything you want to ask her? This is the time for you to ask Inyene questions. Any questions? Okay, yes, sir.
Thanks, Dr. Sen, and thanks, Inyene, for that wonderful presentation. I found it quite interesting. I'm also doing some research surrounding women entrepreneurs, but my area is mainly on resilience building, and I was actually interested in seeing your sort of theoretical understandings of the institutional background. Was there anything that you found in terms of, you said you were using more of an inductive method since it was quite a novel approach. Were there any other studies in the emerging context that you found as a base for you to build on this development when you were going ahead, or how difficult was it initially when you were sort of looking at the literature, especially the theoretical understandings?
Yeah, what previous research has really used institutional theory, you know, where talks about what government can do, what are they able to do in terms of maybe regulatory body and all that. And that's why I moved from just institution to go to human capital theory. Because at the end of the day, the reason from my research, the reason why some of these women, talking about the resilience, the reason why some of these women are not very resilient is because they do not have the skills. The education is not there. It's even men to do. Everyone gets scared of venturing into something. That's the truth. But once you are being equipped with some form of education, some form of skills, maybe it could be through networking, through mentorship, and you'll be shocked that lots of women almost all the women I interviewed said they never had a mentor. They never had mentors. But meanwhile, men do have mentor. You see men, they're all having people who will mentor them in business, but women don't have. So it was more like, forget the institute. They are still important, the regulatory system and all that. But let's go further to see how can human capital really help these women in terms of the entrepreneurial education. You'll be shocked that some women will say, I never even heard the word entrepreneurship when I was in university. And you're like, didn't hear that word, and today you are a business person. How are you coping? Some of them are lucky enough to say, okay, I went back to Lagos Business School. That's one of the biggest business schools in Nigeria and also in Africa, you know, to go and learn some of these things. And it's really interesting to see that I've taught this model, and some students will say, oh, no, entrepreneurs are born. You don't need to get that knowledge. And I'll tell them, I said, go to successful entrepreneurs who were just born. They still had to go and learn a lot of things through entrepreneurship education. So I don't know if I've been able to answer your question.
No, that's perfect. Thanks, Inyene. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Inyene, and thanks, Isra, for asking that question. I think before I go to Oliver, there's a question by Bernard here. What else can the Nigerian government do that they have not done because the women themselves are not mentally ready? So Bernard, are you sure the women are not mentally ready?
Exactly. I wanted to say, why are you attacking the women?
So
okay.
I'm not sure, but either way, I think it's your call. So Bernard.
Okay, I'm going to answer that question. So the Nigerian government has rolled over lots of programs to empower female entrepreneurs. That's the truth. I'm not coming here to say there's no such programs that has been rolled over. But the truth is that they have not really channeled, or the channel they have used is not a proper channel. I give an example. You go into the university. So the Nigerian government have said, let there be entrepreneurship models in universities in Nigeria. A lot of universities, especially the private university, and it's interesting to see that even the public, the federal universities are also picking that up. But you'd see that most times it is the business, you know, maybe like our creative and business industry, let me put it that way, that they make it compulsory for students to do entrepreneurship or to do a model of entrepreneurship. Unfortunately, this is not being spread across the university where people in maybe construction, some universities maybe have spread it, but I tell you that majority of the universities have not spread it. So you see women who graduate from engineering background, from ICTs, computers, and they have no knowledge about entrepreneurship. So that is one of the things that government should do. Yes, bring entrepreneurship into the university, but then make it more of a compulsory model, because you understand the impact of entrepreneurship in an economy. And that way it could also help. Another thing that I also realize or notice that the government hasn't really done is when they roll over this program, you see that they go to train women. So you see that they put in so much money in training women, and at the end of the day, they offer women the financial assistance to start a business. But these women lack entrepreneurship education. They don't know, they know how to do the trade. So maybe teaching them weaving, they can weave, but they have no knowledge on how they can manage their business. And these are the women that already, the word you use, you said, not mentally ready. The only way you can get them mentally ready is to give them that education. Education does a whole lot of things. So that entrepreneurship education would actually get these women mentally ready, according to the word that Dr. Bernard used. I don't know if I've been able to answer your question, Bernard.
I think Bernard's hands are up, but before Bernard,
go ahead.
Before Bernard continues, you just what you said, Inyene, just hit me, because I know like 3 years ago I was involved in I was leading a GCRF project, and it was almost the same thing, trying to develop the entrepreneurial skill of women, and these were asylum women, the women in the refugee camps in Nigeria. And one of the things that we noticed as well was a lot of cultural barriers, the fact that many of them, the men were also, okay, they didn't believe that women should be entrepreneurial, the fact that religion had a part to play as well. They were meant to look after the kids at home and all that. So were they mentally ready? I think I would say they were, but the problem is the environment and context it has so much barriers in trying to get those entrepreneurship abilities. I'm very happy with what you're saying about enterprise education being taught across the universities. One of the things that we know in Scotland, and even in our school, that we try to ensure there's an element of enterprise across all degrees, across all models. But by doing that, it also means that even the women would also have to, because all women go to university, men go to university, so it helps. But the next question would be, how many women go to university in the first place? So maybe even when the government puts those policies in place, because we know from, I'll be asking you that question based on your sample size, but we know there's some parts of Nigeria that women are not encouraged to go to universities. So even when the government puts these policies in place, you see that it is still going to be the men that will benefit from it. But let me not talk too much. Let me let Bernard add. I'll still ask you more about it. But Bernard, before Oliver, don't worry. Bernard wants to elaborate on his question. So before we move to Oliver. So Bernard, what do you want to say there?
Thank you, Christian. Inyene, thank you very much for that insightful lecture. In fact, Christian, I've just taken my word, because I believe that the other mediating factors that are really affecting women entrepreneurship, because as Christian already said, how many women are able to get a chance to go to the university? And the second one is the cultural bias, in quotes, against Nigerian women, because culturally, I remember that I read somewhere that culturally you don't have to do well business-wise than your husband. So if even you are doing, if I'm wrong, correct me, if even you are doing better, you have to find a way to get your husband to take some of the credit, so that you are not glorified ahead of your husband. So I believe that if even the government is giving these education to university people, or irrespective of their area of work, it might not still have that impact that we are intending to get. I might be wrong, but I believe that the government can customize its approach to really get to businesswomen or entrepreneurs who have started something or are in the process of starting something. Because if we generalize the solution to university education, irrespective of courses, we might still have the problem, even though money is being spent. The reason why I'm saying that is From some research on women entrepreneurs, I realized that sometimes they complain about money, they get the money, and they are still not able to use the money, even though they have some training, because of these mediating factors that can affect them. So that is where I'm coming from. I'm sorry if I used mentality.
No, it's okay. I'm just going to answer the question. You picked up a whole lot of things. So you remembered I said that some of the programs are rolled over to train some women. These ones are not in the universities. Not everyone is able to go. We talk about the northern people. I'm sure that's what Christian meant. They are not encouraged to. So it's not all about the university. Some of these women who are already doing some things, the programs that has been rolled over doesn't teach them this entrepreneurship. Education doesn't really mean it has to be in the university. No, it can't just be taught to some of these traders. Let them understand some of the, little nitty-gritties of, money management, bookkeeping, all those little things. Those are the things that sometimes government has not really taught some of these women. I'm happy to even hear that government have started doing things like that, but it needs to be broader. And also in the context of my research, why I keep hammering on the university, entrepreneurship education in the university, is because I am looking at why women are concentrated more in the informal sector. So most of the women that are interviewed were educated people, and they were not really necessity-driven entrepreneurs, but more of opportunity. But we have this mindset that most Africans, most Nigerians are necessity-driven. No, some of them are opportunity-driven. However, they have seen an opportunity and they grab it. They do not have that knowledge. They don't have that education. And that is what is limiting them from becoming successful to or dominating some of this formal sector. So in the context of my research, I look more of how can we get these women into the formal sector? Because the women who are concentrated in the informal sector, where most of the data, the percentage of lots of women in Africa, and they are not contributing so much to the economic, is because the traditional, sector is not contributing that much to the GDP. But meanwhile, we have very intelligent women in Nigeria, to be honest, very intelligent, who are able to do more, but they just lack that skill, that education, that mentorship, no one to mentor them. You'll be shocked that a lot of them just said, oh, I have passion about children. That's why I started the school. Passion is good, but passion will not keep you in that business that long. So I don't know if I've been able to shed light on some of your concerns and your questions.
You have, but you just made a striking point. Just my last one, just an input. You said most of them are in the informal sector. And I feel that they can be trained or to improve the informal sector to catch up in terms of their how they are able to contribute to the growth of the economy. So I think that as part of your solutions or recommendations, we should look at how we can empower those informal people, not necessarily to come into the formal sector, but to grow their small, micro businesses to another level and help the economy. But you really answered my question. Thank you.
Yeah, I like all the feedback that I'm getting, because the truth is that I've looked at it and it's even something I'm drafting for another research. At the end of the day, even the women in the informal sector can contribute, but they need to be more innovative. That's where the problem is. These people are not that innovative. And you see the world, entrepreneurship is all about being, or part of it is being innovative. But some of these women are not that innovative. If they can become very innovative, even in that their small sector, they're the informal sector, they would be able to contribute even more. So thank you for that, Bernard.
Okay, thanks, Bernard. Thanks, Inyene. And it's one of the things that you said, I just wanted to highlight more, was that informal sector. A lot of researchers have said, the scholars have said that maybe the informal sector should be scrapped. We don't need an informal sector. So this argument has always been there. But you see, in a case like Nigeria and many developing countries, there's a case for having an informal sector. So it's all about trying to see how you can equip the informal sector, trying to support that informal sector, because no matter what we do, it's almost going to be almost impossible for us not to have an informal sector within Nigeria, within most of the developing countries. But it's not surprising. I can remember, I think it was even happened in this seminar last, I think it was 2021, when one of the speakers, it was about the informal sector, was the viability and all that, the feasibility. So this is important. But I think my own personal view is empower those in the formal sector. And if you can do that, the country or the economy will be better off. Either way, thanks Inyene and thanks Bernard for your contributions. Then Oliver, the floor is yours. Oliver.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the insightful presentation. Actually, I'm working on African women entrepreneurship in Scotland. And I'm much so interested to know how you came up with the human capital theories, because there are many theories around women entrepreneurs where you find gender theories conflicting with the entrepreneurship theories. If you could just tell me, it would help me too myself. Then another question, do you think the Nigerian women are more pushed in entrepreneurship, or they are pulled into entrepreneurship? Thank you.
Yeah, I do understand the first question, so I'm just going to answer that. Then when we get to the second one, if I'm not so sure, I'll throw it back. So how I came up with human capital theory is the context that I'm looking, which has to do with the formal and the informal sector coming again. So for the formal sector, what do we really need to use to empower these women would be the human capital component, which is education, which is training, which is mentorship. So every component of human capital is what we will need to be able to use as empowering tools, let me put it that way, to empower this female entrepreneur. So that's why I came up. There are so many theories, the gender theories. I didn't want to go to that. People have been flogging the gender theories. People have flogged institutional theory. And I just said, you know what, I'm not going to flog that, because I've seen, some research that has used that and said, what can we really use to empower these women to be more innovative, to enter into that space, to dominate with these men? It is human capital that they need. So that's how human capital came. I don't know, Oliver, if I've been able to answer your first question. I don't know if I've answered that. Then your second question, have I been able to answer the first one?
Yeah, thank you. The second question I was asking you, you see, when people are starting their businesses, they have something that pulls them. Maybe it's of the interest, it's of the government supporting them, or it's the push because they don't have work, or because they are frustrated with the salary. So I was wondering, in your results or on your field work, when you chatted with those women, were they more pushed into the business, or it is just attraction, it's passion? Which one weighs most?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think I do understand.
Okay.
I understand the question.
Okay, let me just explain. I think what
No, I think I understand the question perfectly well. She's asking if these women are opportunist entrepreneurs or they are necessity entrepreneurs. So the necessity is
exactly,
out of hunger, out of no job in the country. Opportunity is when they have seen an opportunity. There's something they love and they just want to go to, create value in the system. It's a very brilliant question, and is one research that would keep going, in countries like Africa and also. Surprisingly, the female entrepreneurs that I did interview, about 60 to 65% of them were opportunity-driven entrepreneurs. So they are not the push one. They were opportunity, and it's shocking to see that. So research has been saying most Nigerians are necessity-driven entrepreneurs, but there are still some women, because I remember I interviewed a lady who said, look, immediately I finished university, I said I wanted to take up the space because I noticed there was some gap in the space. And I said I was going to do that. That is an opportunity-driven entrepreneur who saw something and was ready to give value to young women, because her business is, I think, to young women. And she even has a school in the federal capital there in Abuja. So yeah, I know that some women, or still many women, most women back in Africa are still necessity-driven. However, with the world evolving, women getting knowledge, women becoming more aware of what they want, we are beginning to see more opportunity-driven entrepreneurs back in Africa, in Nigeria, because Nigeria was my context. I don't know if I've answered your questions.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks, Oliver, for that, and thanks, Inyene. I just want to ask more, maybe go deeper into that question. And I think you're smiling. I think you know where I'm heading to. I'm surprised that you're saying that most of them are pull entrepreneurs, or of course what we call opportunity driven entrepreneurs. So, and of course we know with the push, you have many necessity-based people, so it's more about necessity. So are you sure, because I looked at your sample and you said 20. So are you sure that the reason why you have more opportunity people or more pool entrepreneurs is because of the sample? So how did you select your 20? Which region did they come from, one? And which sector did they emerge from?
Yeah, so you see that one of the limitations of my research is my sample size. So I would say the sample size, also had some limitation. But also looking at the context of my research, you could see I did take people who are educated. So mostly I think they were graduates. I even interviewed someone who has a PhD. So they were graduates, and I did take people from 7 sectors. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to really find women in manufacturing, ICT, and that's where they are really lacking. That's even the sector that is really, really evolving and bringing money to the system. You see more men in that sector. So the reason why the statistics that I got that women are more opportunity driven has to do with also the people that participated, or my participant, the people that I recruited, because they were mostly educated people. But also, I could also form something in my brain to say that I could also form something. Please forgive my Alexa. I don't know who is at my front door at this time. The person has to wait. And another thing is that if I took educated people and about 60 were opportunity driven, it means that if you then go to take much data, you're going to find more of necessity driven entrepreneurs. That's the truth. However, it was interesting to me, and even of more joy, let me put it that way, that I could find that 60% of my participants were actually opportunity driven, compared to, everyone always say, oh, female entrepreneurs in Africa are necessity driven. Some are actually opportunity driven entrepreneurs. And yet, yes, the small participant that I have of only 20 could have been the reason for that.
Okay, so where did you get them from?
Okay, so I got them from the 6 geopolitical zone.
Okay.
No, I didn't get them from it. That was my intention, because I wanted to travel, but with COVID, so I only got them from Lagos, which is the hub of commercialization in Nigeria. So I needed some women who have had businesses in Lagos for more than five and more years, and also got from where I come from, the south part of Nigeria, and also the capital, Abuja. So it's mostly like I got my from the north central, and for people who know Nigeria, the north central, the west, because west is where where you really have women who are very entrepreneurial, and also from the south region.
Okay, thank you.
And also the sectors that you asked, I did get from education, because I noticed that a lot of women were doing things in education. I got from media and entertainment. Women are there. Hospitality, you have a lot of women. They also went to ICT. I went to construction. Like I said, I wasn't able to find lots of women in that space.
Well, thank you. I think what you've said, of course, one thing you said now that made me understand even why you would have had more people that are opportunity driven. is because of, you said one of your criteria was, or I don't know whether it was a criteria, but you took people that had graduated already. So most of these graduates, as you can see, will not even be in the informal sector space. Most of them would be in the formal sector space, one. Most of them would know, they will not be driven based on, they will be people that have selected, maybe an opportunity just came and they want to use it. So there was already, I don't want to say bias, but you would have expected to have more people that will be opportunity driven based on the way you went about doing it. Because let's face fact, somebody that has a PhD or has a master's is not going to decide just to wake up one day and start setting up a business. Instead, the person really understands why the person wants to do, whether it's a man or a woman. So I would still feel that whether it was a man or woman, that it will still be more opportunity driven based on the way you went about selecting your sample. But it's great. Don't get me wrong. That is the limitation of your study. So, but I think it also would have affected the way the kind of results that would have emerged. Another thing again is the ethnicity of these people. Of course, I'm Nigerian, and maybe that's why, and it's something that is of great interest to me, is, with the culture, some people say the Igbo women are more entrepreneurial. So the Yoruba women are maybe less or more entrepreneurial compared to the North. So did you see that in your results? Were there traces of tribe influencing entrepreneurship?
Yes.
So
yes, they were. And even the hub, when I said the hub of business, you see the Igbo women are there. Their father raised them. Most of the Igbo people moved to Lagos, and doing businesses there. And to be honest, it's one part of the research that was interesting to me, to see that, yes, the Igbo people are very entrepreneurial, but guess what? They only have groomed most of their men to it. The women are not that groomed to think of becoming business people. It's mostly, and that has to do with the culture. So as much as the Igbo people are very entrepreneurial, which is very good in Nigeria, the women are not being trained to be entrepreneurial. So it's mostly the men that have been trained. So even the one who even get into that space of maybe going to school and doing, they don't really think about that. They still think about going to become a housewife. Think about going to become a housewife, because they have not been groomed up that way. It's mostly their brothers that have been groomed up to take over maybe their father's business. So yes, I did look at something like that, and that has to do with the gender disparity that I talked, just teased a little about in the research.
Okay, Inyene, thank you so much. I think Noreen wants to ask a question. Noreen, you still want to ask your question, because I know you put up your hand and put it down.
Yeah, so thank you, Inyene, for your insightful presentation, because my research is very, very similar to you, but the only thing is I looked at female entrepreneurship from institutional perspective. So I implement not institutional theory. I think you have, but I didn't adopted it. So I just try to come up with my own conceptual framework. And my study was based on mixed methods. So when Dr. Harrison was mentioning about sampling, so I think from that point of view, I was keep thinking, I think 2 years before. So from that point of view, I was just motivated to implement mixed method. So my, I don't have any question, just I want to ask, one of my part, from my qualitative findings, I found out corruption has a really impact on the entrepreneurial activity in emerging economy. So what do you think? Do you have any thoughts on that? And in your findings, did you find anything on corruption?
I did find a lot on corruption, and just to go back to what Dr. Christian said before I come back to you, Nareen, where he talked about religion. I did not want to talk about religion because religion is something people take very personal. So I didn't want to incite anything in my research. So I had to I just probably mentioned it, maybe you could just see 1 or 2 in my literature review, and I ended it there because I know what religion can do in Nigeria. So I said, in my research, I'm not going to bring this. Talking about corruption, even when women want to open their business, maybe they want to register their business for it to be a more corporate business, they face a whole lot of corruption, a whole lot. So men could easily go to their male counterpart, get their business registered easily. Women will go there and some of the favors in, you know how the emerging economy is. Some of the things that are taken very seriously in a developed country, we do not. Some women are victims. Let me put it in emerging economy like my country, Nigeria. So women would go to register their business, the kind of documentation they will be asking them to bring and all that. They are willing to do it, but it's going to take them time to even register that business. And then the next thing they could say, okay, maybe you could do this. Are you able to do this for us? Are you able to do this for us? And some of these women do not want to do that. Then another one that I really noticed in the research is women who say, okay, into construction, let me go into the space. Yeah, I need to be in the formal sector. Let me go into that construction space. And they are bidding for contracts. That's the one that interested me most in my research. They are bidding for contracts. Because they are women, there are some things that are expected of them and they don't want to give out that thing. The male counterpart are able to get it and they are not able to get. That's part of corruption. Another one is a woman in the media and entertainment told me that usually she gets jobs as MC. She's an MC. She's in the entertainment. She said she gets job. And because they do not want to give her that percentage of job that she is bidding for, they would put the meetings at 12 a.m. in the morning. Which woman is able to? You see, I talked about limited mobility. That's the limited mobility too. And they have a reason why they put that. It's part of corruption because they know that she's not going to come out for that meeting. And if she's not able to come out for that meeting, they give it to a man. It's happening to women, unfortunately. That's happening. So corruption is one of them in terms of government contracts being given to men because women are not able to do a certain thing that they are expecting them to do. And as a woman, especially the culture where we come from, we're expected to be very reserved people. That's how we are, where, the culture where we come from. So yes, I've looked at it, the aspect of corruption, women not being able to, get into that space because of this and that. I don't know if I've been able to answer your question, Nari.
Thank you. Yeah, I think in regards of any policy implication, we should just think from the contextual point of view, and so also from the institutional point of view, because in my findings, I came up with several factors, and I saw each are interlinked with each other. So if you are trying to think about education, social networking, so those corruption was coming back and forth, even though they have some opportunity for social networking or any individual training session. But they are not having those information because of the brotherhood or any other favoring. So I think, yeah, so thank you so much. It was insightful presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Can I add something?
Come in, yeah, you can join the conversation.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting because I know that corruption, I don't know which type of the corruption that is asked to women, because I know that men are more with money and they are asked corruption. When it comes to African countries, corruption it's not asked to women or men, it's the cross-cutting thing. Unless there is another type of the corruption that is asked to women. And maybe we are mixing the discrimination of women, looking into them like as if they are weak people, they cannot manage a certain jobs like engineering contracts, sort of things, then they are discriminated from competing with the men. But I'm not sure of the money thing, if it is just for women. I think it's for both men and women. How about that? I got confused over that.
Yeah, it's a good question you're asking. And to be honest, like Naheem said something, during my research, you find out that men do have network more than women. They have network. So you go to maybe Ministry of House and Works or Ministry of maybe something on road. You see that men do have a network. So immediately there is a contract that is being bidded, they tend to give those men because they have network. Women We don't have network. And that's one of the things that my research is looking at. How can you build a network among women, mentor these people, have a large network? Because these men have network and they're using that network against us. So yes, corruption comes in when these men have a network and they want to give the job to a fellow man that they know who is probably in their circle, in their network, and these women are not in their circle. I don't know if that's answered your question, Oliver.
Maybe Dr. Harrison can help us, because that one, I don't think it is corruption, it is network thing in entrepreneurship. I'm not sure.
No, I think, Oliver, there are a lot of things you consider corruption, and I think corruption is a very broad term. From what Inyene was trying to say, it goes beyond just corruption. I think there was a part of discrimination. Usually when you talk about, I know you want to elaborate, but there was a hint of sexual discrimination that you were trying to hint there, where of course women are approached because of that, and if you don't provide that, then of course you don't get the opportunities. Those things are discrimination. But of course, corruption at the level of, I think the normal corruption you tend to see is usually like political corruption, or at the level of the government as well. That's what you tend to see in a lot of research. Okay, people get contracts because they know this person. You will be able to favor this person because, probably in a male-dominated sector, to be fair, based on Inyene's research, there would have been more corruption because they will favor their own people. So when corruption itself is when people get things that not based on merit. So if you give somebody something but not based on merit, because the person is going to favor you, then that's corruption. So, and you see it in any part of the world, not just in developing countries, or even in developed countries like the UK, we tend to see corruption. So for Inyene, I think what Inyene was trying to say there is, because of the male-dominated sector, there is more prejudice against women. So women tend to face this level of corruption more. But I think beyond that, was also trying to hint that there are some glass. And one thing that is fantastic about this study, it goes beyond entrepreneurship. For everything everybody has been saying, it's about women as well. The challenges that women face, whether as entrepreneurs, whether in the workplace, whether in any place, how many, even in education, how many women. So these are the kind of things we're trying to say. We need to empower women better. But of course, from Inyene's research, entrepreneurship is the focus. But one thing that I like what Bernard said at the end is we need to be careful about generalization across board, in the sense that there's something that Noreen also said, hers was context specific. So maybe these recommendations, what works in Nigeria might not work in Ghana or work in where Noreen is coming from as well. So, but the truth is, it's one of the contributions of Inyene's research is at least it makes us to start that conversation again, or continue the conversation about how to empower women in the developing country context. So Oliver, does it make sense then?
Thank you so much, everyone.
Okay.
Even
so
Nakata did well, but I just wanted to understand. I was a little bit confused. Thank you.
No, it's good. It's good. I'm happy with that, because most of the time when we hear about corruption, we need to understand what corruption really means. And to be fair, it's one word that is always aligned to the developing economy. And I always say it's not just a developing economy thing. We see corruption. We saw it with the COVID pandemic. We saw it with a lot of things. We saw corruption in high scale across board. So corruption is not unique to developing countries. So we need to address corruption as a nation as well. So thank you very much. I can see that it was so interesting and we have gone beyond the time. It's great to have everybody here. It's great, the feedback, the comments, everyday discussion. I'm sure it will never end. I don't want to go, but we just have to go because of the time is not supporting us at the moment. But I always say that time flies when you're having fun. And I think it was a great one. Thank you so much, Inyene, for your work today. It's a great work, great study, and I'm sure this work is going to contribute to the landscape of Nigeria and beyond. I see articles emerging from this, and strongly we will see how it's going to empower, because at the end it's impact. Hopefully the Nigerian government and policy, so who knows, you might be called by the Nigerian government to tell them the way to empower Nigerian women beyond the formal or informal sector. So let's watch that space. But thanks, Inyene, and thanks everyone for your contributions. Thanks for attending. I know we all have a busy schedule, and thanks for everything that all of you said. I hope you all had a great time. Next 2 weeks, like we do it bi-monthly, we'll be having another speaker that was talking about engaging students in higher education. That's going to be interesting as well. So make sure you attend and watch this space. But for now, I'm going to sign out, and thanks everyone, and see you in the next 2 weeks. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. See ya.
Bye.